Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Octopus Electric Vehicles Extreme E post-race community event. Traditionally, or the last two that we've done of these, we've done as the event has been going on, just to try and get in there and get timings right. It's been a little bit tricky, so we thought we'd switch it up a little bit and sort of give you a little bit of a debrief, a rundown at the end, and help you understand exactly what's been going on in the world of Extreme E across the weekend. Now, I have two guests with me today. One of them is Ollie and one of them is Sasha, and they're going to run you through a little bit about what they do. We're going to discuss a little bit about Extreme E and about climate change. Then we'll go into the race itself before we sort of break out and have a little bit of a chat with Sasha and Ollie about what they love so much about Extreme E, and then also get into what Sasha is a super expert in about all things to do with how things affect drivers and how we need to train their bodies to react. The whole point in what we're doing today is to get you closer to the action, feel a little bit more involved, and help electric vehicle owners get closer to motorsport and help motorsport get closer to electric vehicle owners as well. But first up, I'm going to introduce Sasha. Hello, Sasha. Hopefully this is all working and internet's all good. Can you hear and see me all okay?
Yes, can see you. Hi, everyone.
Amazing. And I will also add Ollie as well. Hello, Ollie.
Hi, guys. Hi, everybody.
Amazing. So these guys absolutely understand a whole load about motorsport, whole load about Extreme E as well. Ollie being one of the earliest fans. I was trying to find the right way to say that and not offend you there, Ollie. So one of the earliest fans of Extreme E, which is super cool. Now, at Octopus, we're all about helping people get closer to electric vehicles and also to renewable energy. We're part of Octopus Energy Group, which is all about making sure that we can get renewables as quickly and as easily into your homes. And this means there's a whole load of tech that comes along with that you normally wouldn't associate with an energy business. As part of that, we discuss electric vehicles and we help people get involved with electric vehicles through things like salary sacrifice and other ways of getting cars onto your driveway. I'm not going to say anything more right now because there's stuff in the works that people will be really excited about. And then also about how that tech can impact your home. So if you're watching this and you know about vehicle to grid and you know about Powerloop, fantastic. If you don't, the sort of thing we're doing is running trials whereby your car can power your home in periods of peak carbon emissions by the grid. This means that we can get more renewables onto the grid faster. And this sort of tech is what helps us make the huge move into as many electric vehicles on the road as possible. Now, Sasha, you come from less of an electric background than all of us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got into motorsport, and sort of where the passion comes from?
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone, I'm Sasha. I've just completed my master's thesis in quantifying the physiological strains of competing in motorsports at elite levels, specifically looking at Formula One. Obviously, I've looked at all levels of motorsport, but just channeled into the niche area of Formula One. And yeah, so I am about to start my journey as a performance coach in the motorsports industry. So that's kind of looking at how, the physiological strains such as high G loads, temperature, environment, all impact a driver and how you can best prepare them for the races to, get the best results for the team. And yeah, so I have kind of been involved in motorsports pretty much my whole life. I've grown up around it, and I'm really enjoying seeing all these different new race series come up that are really helping benefit the world in a positive way.
Amazing. Ollie, as I said earlier, you're one of the earliest fans of Extreme E. How did you get into it and where did you sort of understand some stuff from?
Well, I was a big motorsport fan like Sasha is, Formula One, WRC, big rallycross fan as well. And it was actually that got me into it. So, obviously Timmy Hansen, Johan Kristoffersen as well, lots of talk around those guys joining. So I was like, I'll check it out, Always tried to get into Formula E and couldn't as much. But this immediately clicked because it was cool electric vehicles and they are cool cars. And it's sort of rally and it's combining those two together and just the climate message as well they're promoting really sort of struck a chord. And yeah, it just went from there. And I thought, I'll get into it a little bit as, like you said, one of these sort of earlier fans. And I was like, actually, there's loads to write about here and just wanted to share loads about it. So I started my website, really got going on socials. And yeah, here I am, 3 races in, still loving it more than ever.
Amazing. I think the thing you touched upon then, that climate change story and that narrative really came to the fore in Greenland, I thought. The race this weekend really helped see that narrative really quite well, whereas previously in the Middle East and then in Senegal, we know that they were doing stuff alongside the racing, the beach cleanup, the stuff in Saudi as well, but it never felt like it quite married up how the two work together. And really this event, I think, really showcased how we had the Russell Glacier in the background that we could keep seeing every single time they came round into the second sector. And there was some really cool stuff around actually seeing the ice retreating in Greenland as well. And then stuff like that glacier had its record loss of water only 2 or 3 weeks earlier at 12 billion litres or 12 billion kilos, which is, I don't think we can even imagine that amount. And actually, we're really grateful to Extreme E because this morning they've sent me across a whole load of videos. So actually what we're going to do is have a quick look at what the scientists got up to on Greenland. And I think, again, this is a really strong message to point out that motorsport is this big traveling circus. And Sasha, you'll know that with Formula One, and Ollie, you'll know that from what you're into as well. And even on a lower scale, even in clubman racing is what they would call it, there is this sort of traveling circus feel where everybody knows each other really well and they travel to different parts of the world or different parts of the UK or different parts of Europe. And something that Extreme E seem to have latched onto is that actually this camaraderie and this way of moving people around, why don't we add some scientists to that? And why don't we pay for them to be able to go to these places, which I think is a huge, huge thing. So we're going to watch a 3-minute video about that, and then we'll come back and have a little bit of discussion about it.
As you can see from the scene behind us, a lot of the ice on the Greenland ice cap is very dark. It's called black ice, and it's dark because it's dirty, and what you've got is a long history of dirt and soot from fires gets blown across to Greenland and deposited on the ice sheet. If the ice melts, it leaves the dirt behind, so the dirt accumulates on the surface, gets blacker and blacker, and the blacker it gets, the more radiation it absorbs, and that means the faster it melts. So what we want to find out is how much of the sediment is soot from wildfires. Is that more than last year or more than in the past? Is it a serious addition to the melt rate of the ice sheet?
There's something special about the Kangerlussuaq Fjord, and it's the one that carves deepest into the inside, the heart of the island. And that means that the Kangerlussuaq Fjord discharges a large fraction of all of the melting that occurs in the ice sheet, and that comes along with a lot of mud and sediment. So we are now collecting this mud and looking at the power of this mud to release the salts and the chemistry that can shift the equilibrium of seawater to bind carbon dioxide.
We're definitely here to race, and that's what we've all come into this sport for. And racing here is going to be something completely new for me anyway, but I think the science element, it really feels like the complete picture. The fact that Carlos said that, he wouldn't be able to do this research without Extreme E is really amazing. I feel really happy to be a part of it.
So yeah, I think that helps showcase what they're all really about. And previously, as I was saying, I think there was a strong environmental tie-up with the way they were traveling in tents, and they're all living on the St. Helena and making sure that all travels around the world in one big go. But actually being able to go and see the things that how climate change is affecting Greenland as well is really, really strong. Now, we saw some, I suppose we should talk a little bit about the racing, actually. We saw some, over the past 2 races, we've really seen it being the Rosberg X Racing, the Molly Taylor and Johan Kristoffersen show. And that's kind of been rallycross whenever Johan Kristoffersen has been involved in rallycross. He did 1 year of sort of dipping his toe in, and then destroyed World Rally Champion Peter Solberg is in the same team as him, which is just bonkers. And it's been really interesting that sort of has been the last two races. But very recently, outside of Extreme E, the Hansen brothers have been catching Kristoffersson in World Rally Cross and actually taking the fight right to him now, having won the first two races of the championship. You could argue that Johan was unlucky. And then again, in Extreme E, the same story seems to have played out. And Johan and Molly didn't have it all their own way, and they were having to really, really push even early in the weekend. I know, Sasha, you were super busy the week before, so I completely understand why you weren't watching shakedown and qualification and everything like that. And we've got some highlights of the final race to help everybody go. But Ollie, really, this has been the first sort of time, apart from in qualifying where we've seen Sebastian Loeb and the X44 car do really well. This was the first time we've really seen the challenge be brought to Johan Kristoffersson and Molly Taylor, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, Seb Loeb, we all know how good Seb Loeb is. We knew he was going to bring it, going side by side against Sarrazin as well, which was great to see. But we've got to talk about the Andretti car because, Molly Taylor against Katie Munnings in that semi-final was just unbelievable racing, and it was some of the best we've seen. Timmy Hansen then taking it, obviously, in the final against Johan Kristoffersson, who we've mentioned, was just amazing. So I think this race was hopefully the one that will really draw people into the sport. But you've got to talk about Hansen boys, mentioned Rallycross. 3 races in a row now, Rallycross and Extreme E, they've done 1-2. And Sasha, I don't know if you'll be able to explain a bit more, but this idea sort of the hot hand in basketball, maybe they're in some form there. Katie Munnings definitely will have that feeling of, form. So maybe the next race, in Sardinia, and after that, we could see more of this sort of stuff, and hopefully so, because, it was real dominance from Rosberg X Racing. We're seeing that a lot, but it's really good seeing other teams up there, and super exciting.
Yeah, I think the other thing we spoke about before we came on air, was the way that the rally drivers really came to the fore as well this round. But the other thing I was watching was seeing how the rally drivers understand racecraft. So they had this real ability to go really fast. But then there was this one point where I think it was Loeb, Taylor, and somebody else were all going into a hairpin, and Kevin Hansen braked about 100 yards later than all of them at right way up, knowing that at some point one of them was him with extra braking, or there was going to be the parting of the sea, and he was going to move into a gap that would have formed. But it's been an interesting tussle there of, I think, Sasha, we were talking as well about Jamie Chadwick, who couldn't be here or couldn't be in Greenland this race because she was at Spa for W Series, which is another female-only motorsport, which we're going to come on and talk about in a wee while. But really, Ollie, you were saying the rally drivers really came to the fore, and do you think you know why?
I think it's just their speciality. I mean, Jamie Chadwick is a brilliant driver. Jenson Button, also a brilliant driver. But when you sort of compare Button to Kevin Hansen, you saw the immediate improvement between week 1 and week 2. And it's just the, Rallycross is what it says on the tin. It's a cross of different terrain, cross of different, surfaces you're racing on, whether it's tarmac and ice, tarmac and, dirt, whatever. So I think these guys just have that experience of being able to handle not only different terrains, but the change in terrain. So we saw it this weekend, they're going from sort of an icy, slushy mix to the rock garden, which I know caught a lot of the guys out, but just being able to handle that change is a huge thing. And like I said, I just think having that experience of rally, we saw how fast, people like Seb Loeb were. Carlos Sainz was super fast this weekend, which we expected every weekend. They've just had some, bad luck. Steph Sarrazin as well has got rally experience. He was fast. So, it was brilliant to see. And then, Kevin Hansen's teammate, Michaela Ann Kolatinsky, I can't really say her name. She doesn't have as much rally experience. She's got more touring car, and we maybe saw the weakness there. So I think it just comes down to what you know, really. And yeah, I think if you want a raw comparison, Jenson Button to Kevin Hansen between race 1 and 2, similar surfaces, but just the difference was immediate. So I don't imagine we'll see Button back unless he really fancies a challenge. I think he's got a winning formula now with the 2 Swedes in the car.
I think Jenson Button's face when Kevin Hansen pulled it back in qualifying was amazing. He realised that he probably wouldn't have been able to do what Kevin Hansen did, but at the same time was gutted he wasn't in the car. It was this sort of jealousy and complete joy at the same time. So for those of you that don't know, what happened there in qualifying was Jenson Button's team received a 30-second penalty for a tyre infringement. I had to explain to my girlfriend what that actually meant, because it's a big technical thing in racing. It will have been that the wrong tyres were scanned, or the right tyres were scanned but not put on the car, or vice versa. And why that's a 30-second penalty is less because those tyres actually will have given them that advantage, but it means that teams don't find a loophole to play with things. The same way that one of the cars clipped a flag. I think Johan Kristoffersen in the semi-final clipped a flag and was given a 10-second penalty, and one of the cars in qualifying did as well and was given a rather large penalty. And people sometimes think that that's a really harsh and unfair thing, but it's actually not to stop that individual thing happening. It's to stop the cumulative effect of racing drivers finding maybe we can gain a 10th if we go here, or maybe we can gain 3/10 if we do this, or if we knock down all of the flags on the first lap, our second driver will just be able to go in a straight line and we won't have to worry about it. So Jenson Button's team received a 30-second penalty. They came into the pits, they swapped over, Kevin Hansen got into the car, Ollie Bennett set off, and then Kevin Hansen chased down a 30-second advantage that Ollie Bennett had. Unluckily, we were robbed of a proper racing finish because the Excite Energy racing car broke down. But I think Hansen would have had it anyway. That then promoted JBXE into no rewards for guessing whose team that is, into the final. And we've got a 3-minute video about the final right now. So I suppose we should get on and watch that for people that haven't already seen it.
5 cars then on the run down to the first corner. What's going to happen here? Far left-hand side of the grid, Andretti United is very bumpy there. Contact already between JBXE, just getting into the rear corner. It looked like Acciona Sainz. Acciona Sainz dropping back. X44 and RXR side by side. The car's bucking up and down. It's so bumpy on the run down here. Sainz is at the absolute back of the squad. The Acciona Sainz car. Munnings uses her hyperdrive now. Takes the lead. Katie Munnings has taken the lead here. Molly Taylor for RXR coming in, trying to make a pass on the run down towards the first corner. Big braking zone down here now. Up through the middle. Sebastian Loeb for X44. 3 cars wide on the braking zone. Loeb's going to leave it as late as he can, so will Munnings, but it's inside line for Molly Taylor. Surely Taylor can get this from here. JBXE are right there. Acciona Sainz a long way off the back. Now on the brakes. Watch for the wide line and the cutback. Coming around the flag. Loeb runs a little bit deep. Molly Taylor looking 4 cars now into the narrow section. It's going to be Sebastian Loeb who finally gets the whole shot. The exit waypoint 6. Contact between JBXE there. Can't quite make the pass, and it's Andretti United who hold on to third.
Taylor, Munnings, they're really battling here, and I tell you what, Munnings is really keeping Taylor honest.
Kevin Hansen is back onto the back of Taylor and Munnings, so Kevin has really closed the gap down. Is anyone going to go for an alternate line? I think not on this lap. I think they'll take it steady.
And at the point where the marker denotes, they have to slow down to 30 kilometres per hour. You can see there, actually Taylor goes early, and then behind them, Munnings, she did a good job.
Munnings was close there. She was really close. I thought she might collect the back of Taylor. Still, the lead has got a rear right puncture.
So they can fix it. They have a tyre there. You can see at the back, the engineer mechanic just getting the car up on the jacks. They'll have a chance to get back in this, but this is maybe blowing away a lead.
We thought his line was good across the rock garden, but maybe it wasn't, Jenny. Maybe he just had a problem. They got the wheel off already. Loeb's got the wheel nuts in his hand in the car. She'll be belting herself in.
Yeah, a 9-times world rally champion becomes a mechanic for the moment as he has to help this stricken team to get back up and running.
Andretti United leading now with Hansen at the wheel. Johan Kristoffersen in right behind, but Michaela Arlen-Kotlinski has gone with them as well. I didn't see if any of them used hyperdrive. I don't think they did. They're going to be saving that, Jenny, for passes down that back section. Really impressed with Arlen-Kotlinski. She's going with 2 of the best rallycross drivers in the world here. These guys are so good. Kristoffersen coming in wide and then tight. Hansen might try and stall him up at the apex. Kristoffersen now full throttle on the exit. Oh, over the crest, they are still side by side.
So one of them takes the higher line, one of them the lower line, and you can see Timmy Hansen took that lower line, but the air they got there, incredible. This is a a real duke it out fight, and they are no holds barred. Oh, but damage for the Rosberg car. This is the moment. This is the battle for the arcticxprix. This is a battle and a challenge for the championship. Munnings has done a great job to set up what is a fantastic win for Timmy Hansen. He looks to come across the line. They have smashed it out of the park. Congratulations to them. Andretti United win. A fist pump for Timmy Hansen. They collect 25 points. They are delighted. Well done.
Absolutely brilliant. Back with the team.
Well, the team congratulating Timmy Hansen. You can see what it means to them.
Andretti United on the top step for the first time. Timmy Hansen and Katie Munnings.
Yeah, I think just to, before we say anything else, what an incredible race that was. And actually they changed the format for this round, didn't they? Which actually I think made a huge difference.
Yeah, so they changed the format of the qualifying to get into this race. So previously, first race, because of dust issues, admittedly, we had a 3-car final, but it was all sort of more time trial based for the qualifying. Second race, we had a 4-car final, which unfortunately 2 got knocked out in the first corner, I think, which was a bit of a shame. But this was our first 5-car final, which gave actually all teams sort of an equal opportunity if you qualified for the first 2 semi-finals to get in. And obviously one team from the crazy race to get in, and it just paid off. I mean, you just watch that. If you can, go and watch the whole thing right through qualifying as well, the semi-finals, because it was amazing. They even changed the course as well between quali and the race, because they think they changed the first corner or so. So it was just unbelievable, and I think it was just action from start to finish for the week, not only the race but the weekend. And that's what definitely extremely needed. And yeah, just what an amazing event. I just can't stop thinking about it, actually. Can't stop smiling.
Amazing. And Sasha, was your heart in your mouth when you saw the height of that jump from Johan Kristoffersen, wondering what injuries he's got off the back of that, eh?
I know. I mean, you can't really prepare for something like that from a physiological aspect. So, I wonder if he was a bit sore the next day.
It's really interesting that I always get confused because there is a Christina GZ who races for Excite, and then there's Christina Gutierrez who races with X44, Lewis Hamilton's team. And she came into this weekend 8 weeks out from having two fractured vertebrae, which I don't quite understand how that works. I suppose, Sasha, do we want to sort of transition now into speaking about, I suppose that's a good topic to get into, what your area of expertise is and what you're looking at, and then how I suppose the drivers prepare for such a mammoth task of going halfway up into the Arctic Circle and then driving some cars in circles, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a preparation aspect, it's going to be completely different for each race. And like you said, they even changed the layout of the track. So even when they're going around each lap, it's completely different, the route that they take. They're not taking the same corners. They're not going along the same lines. And so even just trying to prepare for that, I don't know how they do it. I would actually love to know more about who their performance coaches are, if they have any, because even, for example, they're all traveling from different places. They're not based in the one place in the world before they go to these races. They're also traveling to places where the altitude might affect them, the temperatures might affect them differently. So, for example, people that are maybe perhaps more used to colder atmospheres will be more well equipped and acclimated to the environment that they're in. Therefore, they might not feel as tired.
Scottish people make better racing drivers.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends if you're somewhere cold. But I mean, yeah, that would definitely help. But yeah, there's so much that you've got to take into consideration with these. Even just the visual aspect as well. The terrain that you're going over. If you're used to, for example, we used Jamie Chadwick earlier. She's used to, straight lines, hitting the apex at the exact same time every time, turning at specific times. You can't prepare for that in this race series. So, I mean, it's completely different. It takes a completely different spin on things, even just scientifically from a human performance aspect. But yeah, it was super exciting to watch. This race really kind of set the bar high for the next one. Like, I'm super excited to see how it pans out. But I do hope that fans that watch, the first couple watch this one, and they'll be really, happy and excited to see the next one.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important that actually the series grows and gets bigger and bigger and gets more attention. And I think a few manufacturers are probably eyeing it up. Audi have just announced that they're not racing in something petrol driven in the US, and they've got a car that looks very like an Extreme E car that's about to go and compete in Dakar. And then they've got some other stuff as well in sort of the German cars. I think the German manufacturers are going to start looking there, and then we see a huge, certainly from the Octopus standpoint, we see this sort of thing on the horizon of a lot of Chinese manufacturers, and whether that is Chinese manufacturers who are building Swedish cars, a la Polestar, who are owned by Volvo, who are owned by a Chinese manufacturer, or MG, who were essentially just bought. And because SIAC don't want to come into the UK and disrupt a market that already exists with an unknown brand, they want to come in with MG. So I think there's a few manufacturers that might be sniffing. We know McLaren are coming in next year. And that's an interesting one as well, because behind the scenes, they do a lot of work of selling electrical components that we probably, lots of people maybe don't know about. Things like a lot of the Formula E cars originally had McLaren pieces of software. McLaren build all of the ECUs in Formula One as well to try and keep regulations safe, and that we know that everybody's doing the right thing. Teams will always find ways around it, or run a second ECU and make it look like that ECU is working the way it should and do other things. But it's quite exciting to see that. I suppose, Sasha, are there things that those drivers could have done? Are there things that would stand you in a much better... I suppose camping is probably not the best thing to be doing just before you go out and in a race. And these guys are not going to 5-star hotels as they normally would. Or in Formula One, I suppose, have your little porter cabin that's not... Well, porter cabin is the wrong phrase, but the sort of the driver's office where they have everything they need, including potentially their masseuse and their physio and a whole lot of other things as well. What could these drivers have done? Because Ollie, correct me if I'm wrong, the teams are really small as well, right? There's only like 5 or 6 people in a team. Yeah,
it's minimal numbers there, which is obviously goes to the environmental impact. So as little people there as possible. So basically no support staff for the drivers themselves, like we see with F1, physio or a trainer, and then maybe a personal assistant. It is the driver, which is really cool because it sort of brings it back to that raw motorsport idea. And they even have to bring their own plates and cutlery. So, it is really scaling it back, which is quite nice to see, actually. Yeah.
So yeah, Sasha, what if we were going racing at the next event in Sardinia? What could we do? Get lots of sleep, eat lots of fruit and veg.
The first thing you'd have to kind of do is try and make your body clock, particularly the week before, fit into the body clock you're going to be on there. Just rest and recovery is a major performance enhancer. If you're not getting the correct recovery, like for example, you spoke about 2 broken vertebrae and back in the car within 8 weeks, that's pretty incredible. Especially with the terrain that they're on. I think it's pretty dangerous, it's rough. The impact that's going to be having on their bodies is actually going to be quite strenuous. It's going to face them with more challenges, for example, like if it's a long event, endurance wise as well. Like I said, the more acclimated you are to a particular racetrack, or these racetracks you can't even really practice, can you? But they just have to put themselves in a situation which is as similar to what they're going to be doing as they can, which does definitely put a kind of bit of a spanner in the works, because there's not much you can do to prepare for these racetracks. But yeah, the drivers have just got to kind of speak to, I assume they probably will have some sort of performance coach or someone that trains them nutrition wise as well, and psychologically as well throughout their careers. But they'll need to take points from that and how they go forward from previous race series that they've been involved with, and take that forward with them so that they are best well equipped. But they'll know themselves the way that they work best, and I can assure you they'll definitely be doing everything they can to try and make life as easy as possible for themselves. Even though I don't think competing in this race series makes it life easy at all.
I was I was hearing an interview with Molly Taylor, and she was saying that Johan Kristoffersson gets out the car, and when she asks for feedback on the next lap, he's like, "You'll do okay." And I think, I don't know whether that, having heard what you've just said, I imagine that it's probably more about pushing confidence into her than actually anything else. And then she said the one time that she really needed feedback, he came in and he went, "Oh, it's a bit dodgy today." And I think that must have thrown her quite a bit. She was saying, like, that's not how things go on. And I think I talk a lot about Johan Kristoffersson, but I think that's because he brought a real Formula One mindset to Rallycross. His onboard studying, his meticulous levels of looking at timings of lights and trying to work out whether the lights had a sequence or whether they were random, so he could almost guess things like that. And I suppose, Sasha, is that what you're saying, that all of those factors are completely taken away now from these drivers, and it's almost on raw talent or bravery alone?
Yeah, I would definitely say that this race series has a more psychological impact than physiological. Obviously, they are really straining their bodies, but I think the mental preparation for this is going to be a lot more in the forefront for them than training your body physiologically. Because if you imagine going into these races, like if, for example, Jamie, I know I keep speaking about her, but she's the racer I know the best out of this group. But she is used to, a really structured way of dealing with a race weekend, whereas this is completely different. So for her, she's not used to, for example, rally car drivers. They're used to their terrain changing. They're used to not taking the same lines exactly at every single corner. So I think, for her, in the back of her head, she'll probably be thinking, these people do have a little bit of an edge on me, and it'll be making sure that she kind of believes in herself to see how she actually reacts in the car. But the feedback that you were just chatting about, I don't know if that would be very useful.
It is interesting because I think, again, I was reading something by Thierry Neveu, who's a WRC rallyer, and for those of you that don't watch rallying, or for those of you even that do watch rallying, you probably aren't aware that the drivers actually drive sometimes 200 kilometers to a stage in the morning. So actually, they're almost at an advantage here because they are used to getting up at random times, not having that routine, maybe having to get in the car and then having a little bit of routine in the car. I know Oik Tanak has another rally driver, he has a certain playlist that he listens to in the car. If I suggested to my race team that we kept the stereo in my car, I think they'd probably say unspeakable things and never let me in the car again. But those kinds of things really do sort of help people. And I suppose, Sasha, you were talking about the psychological aspects. And I suppose the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is that male-female split in Extreme E that seems to be sort of really paving a way into a new sort of understanding of, we have, Ollie, you were saying before we even started, one really old female racing driver, and then we have a whole load of young female racing drivers as well, rallying and racing drivers. And Jamie Chadwick even had to miss this one because the only other all-female race series just happened to run on the same weekend. And I suppose, are there psychological things there? Do you think because they're racing together in a more equal split, that helps them to understand a little bit more about actually pushing on and being more of a less constrained by talent pool? Does that make sense? Like, rather than being lots and lots of guys and you being the only female there, I can understand why you maybe don't have a role model that you can be like, I am like that person. And I suppose, do you think that helps the drivers, or do you think that just helps younger karters coming up through?
I definitely think it will help both the drivers that are in the series and also youngsters wanting to come up and see role models. Like you said, I think we were speaking about earlier, a lot of the female drivers are younger, and there's a reason for that. It's because, back 20 years ago, there wasn't this platform for women to get involved in motorsport. It was very much a man's world. And I think that the strides that they're making in the industry at the moment is just great to see for every single type of woman that wants to get involved in the sport, every person that wants to get involved in the sport. For example, there's not just one route. You can't just be a driver. For example, me seeing Angela Cullen work with Lewis Hamilton has been a major influence on my life and how I want to get into the sport. So I think, yeah, if you can see someone doing the job that you're wanting to do, or you're racing alongside, other strong female talent, that's really going to push you and, give you a bit of a boost, saying, yeah, we are as good as the men. We are here because we deserve to be here. And yeah, it's definitely going to push the sport forward. I think for us females watching this, it's great to see a racing series that involves both men and women on an equal playing field.
I think it's always really interesting because both you may have a different experience, Sasha, but both Emily and Sam, the two girls that spoke previously about, Emily races circuits in Scotland and Sam races rallying in the British Rally Championship, where she's a co-driver. And both of them had said they'd never really experienced sexism once they were in motorsport, but they could see how people could watch it and feel like it was very sexist. Yeah. I don't know if that's something that Extreme E is trying to break, that sort of thought process, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think I would agree with the girls. Like, I've definitely never experienced anything like that. I think, if anything, men have been completely supportive of wanting to get women involved in the sport, particularly those that are, invested in motorsports in general. But yeah, I can see why some people might find it a bit daunting, going into a sport or being involved in a sport that has been for the past however many years quite male orientated. But no, I think for me, it's definitely not been something that's ever put me off. And I can definitely say that everyone that I've spoken to has been super supportive of getting women into these roles. So I think it's a really positive change that's happening.
Amazing. And I think actually, if you walk around a paddock in any sort of amateur racing or whatnot in the UK, there's so many females who are actually doing a lot of jobs that you wouldn't know exist if you didn't watch motorsport. I know a lot of my ex-colleagues from when I did stuff with petrol engines, which we won't talk about because that's burning dead dinosaurs. But they now run the team of 3 girls that I worked with now basically look after the whole of European GT. And that's huge. And I don't think if you stopped somebody random on the street who didn't know that much about motorsport, they wouldn't suggest to you that the 3 people running one of the biggest race series in Europe happen to be 3 30-something-year-old females, which is, I think, the taboo or the misunderstanding that Extreme E's trying to break down, which is amazing. So we're nearly out of time. Thank you both so much for joining. It's been wonderful. We will get you some fluffy octopuses in the post when we can. Before we go, we know that there's potentially 2 more events, one more that's confirmed. The Amazon sadly had to be taken away because of COVID and some other things. And then the same with, it was originally the Himalayas, wasn't it, Ollie? And then it moved to Argentina. And now the big C word has done lots of horrible things around the world, and we can't go racing there. But we're doing Sardinia, and then there's another one that's yet to be confirmed, right?
Yeah, so I think they're looking at Greece, Turkey.
Ooh.
I can't think of 2 other places off the top of my head, but from the looks of it, it might have to be European focused, like you said, because of the big event, we'll call it, that has been going on. But yeah, buzzing for Sardinia. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, they should wait till January and then go to do some stuff on some frozen lakes in Norway. That would be.
They were talking about Scotland at one point, so you never know. It could come to the UK.
Rannoch Moor, I don't think the deers would like that. I think that's part of the problem. The deer would get in the way. That's far too much a story of Glasgow city dwellers who go on their family holiday and then have to explain to their children about what's just happened on one of the busiest sort of fast roads in all of Scotland. So Sasha may or may not have a favourite for going into the championship, but is there anybody that you're particularly impressed with from what you've seen?
I think so far I've really enjoyed watching Katie Munnings. I think she's one to watch. I like, but like I said, I just enjoy watching the sport. I'm excited to see what happens and see who comes out on top. So yeah, definitely will be watching the next few.
Amazing. And Ollie, who's winning the championship?
It's hard to look past the Rosberg team. How much it pains me to say, because I'm a big Andretti fan. Officially, I'm neutral, but it's hard to look past that Taylor-Christopherson partnership, because even though they didn't win this weekend, they could have, let's be honest, if it wasn't for a battery failure by the looks of it. So yeah, those two.
I just want Chip Ganassi to show just have a free run and show just how fast Kyle LeDuc and Sarah Price are, because they seem like they're wired to the moon. They seem like they have no fear, and they go into everything about 20 miles an hour faster than everybody else. It's like Colin McRae. It doesn't always come off, but when it does come off, it will just be incredible, and they will blow everybody out the water and then roll it with about 20 yards to go and have to cross the line like that. And that's what I'm not that fussed about who wins the championship, but I just want to see them come up and compete, because you watch Kyle LeDuc's on board and the attitude of the car is just a whole nother level. So Sasha, we're going to see Katie Munnings win the next one.
Yeah.
So that will take it right down to the wire for the final one in whatever European-based country it is. Ollie, Rosberg X Racing will then finish second to Chip Ganassi when they roll it over the finish line. All right, is that what we're predicting?
Yeah, why not? That seems mad enough. This sport has been mad for 3 events, so why not?
Yeah.
Everybody, go place your bets now. You've heard it from us 3, and we'll get you all sorted. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you have any questions about electric vehicles, renewable energy, or of course, electric motorsport and getting involved with how you can do your bit for the environment, please let us know. Get in touch with us. You can drop onto our Twitter, you can drop onto our Instagram, or drop onto our LinkedIn as well. And we'd love to see you soon. Thank you so much.